Pavlov's House. This is a game set in World War II. It is an historical war game depicting the Soviet defense of the building known as Pavlov's House during the Battle of Stalingrad. Yeah, no, Pavlov is not the scientist. It's not that the Russians were ringing a bell and the German outside were salivating. It is just the name of the guy that led the storm attack. They took the building from the Germans. The building was a fortified apartment building, and it became a symbolic element of the Soviet defense against the Germans. Here in this game, you control the Russian defenders, and also you have a saying in the operational situation that surrounds the house, and so you also had to plan about the resources that you're trying to get into the house so that your defenders of the house can be fed, can have ammo, can have all that they need, or some of what they need to fight off waves and waves of German attackers. The game is mainly a solitaire game in which, again, you play the Soviets and the AI system controls the Germans, or there are also variants for cooperative or competitive. I played solitaire only, and well, so that's the way I'm going to describe the game. The game has many moving parts, has many unique procedures for different elements of the design. My overview may be a little long, and still it won't be all that the game entails. It still will not be a full tutorial. I'm still going to give you a general sense of the main ideas, main concepts of the game, so that you may get a sense of how the game plays. It is a little procedural. It will look more procedural than it is from my overview, because simply I have to go through several of these procedures, and you will get a similar sense when you read the rulebook. When you play the game, things actually will start clicking and kind of like going smoothly, faster than you would expect from my coverage or from the rulebook itself. But without further ado, let's take a closer look at Pavlov's House. The board is divided into 3 areas. Here you have a tactical area that represents the inside of Pavlov's house, with an area where you're placing new resources, that is, new fighters and weapons that are coming, new supplies, and then you'll move them around in different combat positions and or in the suppression area, which is where you store up suppression tokens before you actually use them. Here we have an area that represents the approaching areas to Pavlov's house. Sort of like in games in the State of Siege system, you will place enemy tokens here, they will advance, and if one of those tokens advances past the arrow on its own track, you immediately lose the game. You also immediately lose the game if there are no defenders in Pavlov's house. Finally, you have another section of the map, or the board, that represents a section of Stalingrad at the operational level. Now you're seeing things more from the bird's eye point of view, and here you have areas where, again, operational stuff is happening, where supplies are being sent to you, but then they need to be shipped across the river, where maybe you will place artillery support that then you will try to call on to help you destroy enemies that are in this area. Lines of communication, anti-aircraft defenses, and very important, that space there. Now, as I will explain later, there are game effects in the game that will place these disruption tokens on the board, especially in this area here. If for any reason you need to place a suppression token in an area that already has one, you place in the next area going up numerically. So it is a situation I'm rolling a 17. When determining where to place a suppression token, I place a suppression token there. If there ever are 2 suppression tokens in that area, or I should say, if you have a suppression token in area 18 and you need to place another one, you also lose the game immediately. The game revolves around the placement and repositioning of counters on the board and around these 2 decks, one representing your actions and the other one representing the actions of the enemy. Then you also have 2 extra decks that are optional to add some tactics that make the game more challenging, operational support that gives you a sense of what's happening in other areas of the city and how that may affect what's happening on the board. But these are variants, so we don't have to worry about those, and you shouldn't worry about those until you become very familiar with the basic game. Now, each turn is divided into 3 phases. First, you will draw 4 cards from this deck, and you will select 3 actions from 3 different cards, and you will resolve those actions. Then you will draw 3 cards from this deck, and you will resolve the enemy actions. Then you will activate your counters, the counters that are inside Pavlov's house, and you can activate them to move and or to attack or perform other actions. Pretty much any action other than moving will exhaust the counter, so you flip it to its exhausted side, and then you need to spend recovery actions to flip them back and make them available to perform actions again. But now let's start from the actions that are available to you that come from this deck. Each card has 2 possible actions, and you can choose either one. So basically, again, if these are the cards that I drew this turn, I can choose 3 from these 8 actions, as long as they're from different cards. Some cards are Fog of War, which really don't do anything other than simply to clog your hand and to worsen how effective your hand is going to be by limiting your choices. The important idea is that pretty much these actions will allow you to interact with areas on the board and will allow you either to remove a disruption token that may be there, or will allow you to, well, actually do something a little cooler. So for example, if there's a disruption token here, and I have this card and I choose to activate it for this action here, I can use it to remove that token. Or I can choose to use this action to place an artillery token in area 10 or 11, those are designated for this kind of action, an area that does not have a disruption token. The Volga military flotilla, similarly, if there's a disruption token here in the Volga River, I can remove it by using one of those actions, or, well, this is where the goods that need to be delivered to Pavlov's house are going to be. There are other actions that will place tokens in the staging area, say maybe you get sapper tokens, ammo, food, first aid kits, and then you can use the flotilla action to transfer these tokens to areas here of the flotilla that are not occupied by disruption tokens. So the idea is ideally first remove the disruption, then use the area at the maximum of its effectiveness. So you can use the flotilla action to, again, clean up disruption tokens, or transfer goods from the staging area to the flotilla, or transfer goods from the flotilla to the supply area, in Pavlov's house. Now what else do we have here? Other possible actions. You can interact with the 139 Signal Battalion, but it allows you to remove disruption tokens from this area, from these spaces. Now, since tokens that land on spaces that are already occupied will go to the next space up, that means a lot of tokens will be pushed in this area here. So you're going to spend a lot of these actions simply cleaning up this area. If it's all clean, well, if it's very clean areas, you can spend that action to place these tokens here. And if all of them are covered by your own token, which I don't know how that can possibly be, I find it incredibly challenging, then you get an extra action each turn. Be sweet, but I still have to see that happen. The anti-aircraft battalion, there are 2 types of anti-aircraft battalion cards, but they both allow you to, I think you guessed it, remove disruption tokens or place anti-aircraft battalion tokens that can be spent later when there are bombing runs from the Germans. You can try to stop them. Sapper action, sapper battalion, if you use that action, well, you need to have sapper tokens in Pavlov's area, and then you can use them to reinforce your house. We'll talk about that later. Or you can place them in sapper areas here, which means that when enemy units move into this area, they get attacked by that token, which is removed, and there's a good chance that they will go kaboom. So that's pretty cool. But again, you need to first get them in staging area, send them on the Volga, hope they're not sunk, put them there, send someone to put them there. So it's very laborious, but hey, when it happens, you really get a sense that all that preparation paid off. The 62nd Army Command Post, its space is here on the board, And so that's an area that you really want to keep clean from disruption tokens. Also, using this action allows you to place resource tokens in the staging area. What else do we have? The 13 rifles. Where is it? The 13 guards rifle division allows you to get tokens from the supply, and these are defenders and weapons, to take them from the supply and to put them in the reserves area. You get 6 points. Now, speaking about those counters, you have numerical values on them. The one on the left is their attack value, the one on the right is the suppression value. Here's the cost, and then there may be letters that show you that they can do different things. This guy, for example, can you be part of a machine gun team, this can be part of an anti-tank team. People with the M may be part of a mortar team. C units with a C have are commanders. They can remove exhaustion from other units. F means forward unit. This unit can call for artillery support. So a lot of different things. But again, important is the cost. When you're playing the action that I showed you earlier from the 13 Guards Rifle Division Command Post, you get 6 points to spend in weapons and or people to put in the reserve. For example, here I have a mortar team that would cost me 4, and I can place them here, and then maybe I still get something else. I get this guy, which is like a man for all seasons, a jack of all trades, a little bit of attack, a little bit of suppression. I think these are the main actions that you have there. So again, pretty much you are cleaning up the area and getting resources for when things start getting bad, which happens when that deck is used. After you resolve your actions, you draw 3 cards from here. Now this deck is formed basically of several mini decks that are shuffled independently. So you have the deck number 1, and then deck number 2, and there's a misplaced card that should be in deck number 2, deck number 3, and so on and so forth. So you shuffle them separately, and then you place them one on top of the other, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That gives you a sense of progression. That means that the tougher cards will be later, and in earlier phases you get bombarded a lot. They're trying to soften up your defenses before in later phases they launch major attacks. Actions that you may have to resolve. Placing an enemy unit, placing riflemen, for example. Now, when you are placing for an enemy unit, first you roll to see which track it goes on. There are 6 tracks, and so, well, riflemen, I would place those riflemen here. If there already is a unit on that track, suppose like this, and I'm placing a new unit, then that pushes that unit there. And again, if they push each other until one goes past here, you lose the game. If I'm supposed to place infantry, I can also try to suppress them. Suppose that I have suppression tokens in the suppression area facing the area where a token must be placed. Now you see this area here is red, and that means that units and suppression tokens in this area have a line of sight to this area here. This area of Pavlov's house is green, so that means that from there I can attack here, and here we have a purple area that can attack here. So suppose I have suppression tokens there, and I decide to spend them when I'm supposed to place infantry, then I roll dice and I try to attack them. Now the basic idea, the basic attack is the same for all forms of attack. That is, the attack strength that you're using will give a certain number of dice. You roll the number of dice, and if any of them is equal to or higher than the defense of whatever it is that you're attacking, you're successful and you remove that something. So in this case, for example, I'm supposed to place this unit, but I spend 3 suppression tokens. I get to roll 3 dice, and if at least one of them is a 4 or higher, I don't have to place this unit. Then we have bombing Stalingrad. This number up here is the number of bombers or bombing runs, in any case, bombing attacks that you're going to suffer. And this is the defense in case you have and decide to use air defenses. So if you have air defense tokens, you discard them and then you will roll dice. And again, for each roll which is equal to or higher than the defense of the bombers, you remove one of those. Suppose that I rolled these 2 dice, then I was able to remove 2 bombing attacks of those 3, and 1 is left. So each bombing attack that still needs to be resolved, you roll 3 dice, that gives you a number that you will then, that is where you will place your next token. For example, right there, well, let's say it's like this. Okay, I have 13. Then the bombing places a disruption token there, and again, that means next high up. So basically these bombing things will remove tokens that you have already there and place disruption tokens that you need to remove before you can do, well, something there. Attack a building. You roll a die to determine the area of the building that has been attacked. This is how many dice you roll. And again, that scores a hit if at least one of them is equal to or higher than the defense. The 3 sides of the house start with a defense of 6 at the beginning of the game. If a hit is successful when the enemies are attacking the building itself, the defense goes down. So next time that an attack a building action will target this area, they will roll the number of dice as usual, but they will only need to roll at least a 5 or higher to reduce the defense further. If it's already down and they're still attacking the building, they're successful. Of course, that's bad. There are negative effects that will apply to the defenders that are in that area. Then what do we have next? We have bombing Stalingrad. We saw that, a lot of that. Placing other types of units, placing infantry. Attack building. I want to show some other actions. These people are so creative. Placing armor is the same thing. It's just you cannot suppress it. It goes on the track that is determined randomly. But now to attack, you need to use special actions. For example, you need to attack them with artillery from the other side of the river, or you need to have an anti-tank team. Yeah, these actually are the main things. Sometimes they will attack the defenders themselves. A sniper will target the defenders themselves, and sometimes you have assaults. That is, the units that are on the board will use their number on top. The one at the bottom is the defense. The number on top is the attack value. And so the infantry, you will total those and they will roll dice against the defenders to suppress them. And the tanks that may be on the board will use their combat value. Again, you total all those that apply and you roll those dice to attack, this time the building. So pretty bad, huh? Also, from time to time, you will encounter one of these cards, which is the Resupply Card. When that happens, you need to demonstrate that you have enough food tokens in the house. For each food token that you discard, you can keep five defenders in the game. The ones in excess need to be discarded. And again, if you have no one in the house, you lose the game. Also, after you resolve this card, you turn it to this side, you place it in the storm group area next to the house, and it becomes an opportunity. There's a procedure. You can spend some of your counters sending them out to storm the areas outside of the house. Very deadly for you, very dangerous, but it is a good source of victory points. Finally, after you resolve 3 German actions, it's time for your people here to perform actions. I'm not going to go through all of them. I don't want this video to be a full tutorial and sounds, just boring and confusing. Just know that your teams, your defenders will move around the house. Again, many actions will exhaust them. And what they can do is to attack someone that they have line of sight to. This guy is here and has a line of sight to these people. He doesn't have anti-tank, but he could use his attack factor, which is only 1, to roll a die and attack one of these groups. If he rolls 4 or higher, then that attack is successful. You can use somebody with the forward observer ability, again, to launch an attack on one of the tracks. And when you're launching an attack by artillery called by the forward observer, then you're attacking 2 adjacent areas on that track, so that's pretty sweet. And you can attack tanks. It takes 2 people going around with a anti-tank to attack tanks, to use that value in attack, and that exhausts both people. You can use the suppression token, the suppression value of your man or of your weapon. In this case, here the attack is 2, suppression is 3. You can use a suppress action, that is, use the suppress tokens, the suppress action to use the suppress value that will let you move the suppression tokens from your supply to an area, to the suppression area of the section where your suppressing units are. Command, you can exhaust a commander to recover 3 other units. Again, you can spend an action simply to recover an exhausted unit or to remove a disruption token from an exhausted unit. A lot of these things here, but many are variants of attack the enemies directly or use other resources on the board to attack the enemies, prepare defenses such as placing supper tokens here, reinforcing the house, etc, etc, etc. Basically, your man will run around like maniacs, preparing for future attacks, executing attacks, relocating from one area to the other, preparing to suppress, preparing to attack, etc, etc, etc. You repeat the procedure like this, 3 actions from your deck, actions that are mainly at the operational level, 3 German actions, and then 3 tactical actions here in the house, move plus 3 tactical actions. Continue like this until either you lose the game or you go through the entire German deck, in which case doesn't mean that you have won. In this case, then you control several factors on the board, you determine your score, and that tells you if you have lost or won the game. So, as I said, this game is pretty procedural. You just have many different things that you're doing. Although the basic idea behind about combat is the same everywhere, you still have many different areas that work in different ways on one another, different counters that have different abilities. You will find yourself double-checking the rulebook for what that symbol means or what exactly that area does. A lot. In a certain sense, I recommend a way of learning the game could be, well, just start from playing it really, since you will have to go through those procedures a lot, double checking. I don't know if you really need to read the whole rule book and then go back, because you probably won't remember the 2nd or the 5th or the 7th element of that range of options. Just set up the game and start flipping those cards and simply check the rule book to see what they do. And then, well, then check and double check and triple check, and after a while you find yourself not checking all that much. Probably the first game will be just a learning game, and that's perfectly fine. And then from the second game, you will start seeing the forest and not just the trees. And it's a very interesting forest. It's a very intricate forest. When you get the sense of really how it works, and when you're now playing with some degree of competence, you may not win, but at least you know what you're doing and you know what you need to do to get that objective or try to get that objective. Well, then it becomes really interesting because you have a really organic situation here. In fact, I really like games that emphasize logistics, and this is definitely a game that does that. It is not just about pulling that trigger and firing that weapon. It's about figuring out how the heck you get the ammo where it needs to be used, how the heck you keep the soldiers alive so that they don't starve, so that they have first aid kits, etc, etc, etc. And it's really interesting how, well, you really start from the beginning. You need to get the resources on the other side of the river, then look for somebody who transports them, then load them, get them across the river, then deliver them. And then even inside the house you have to choose how you want to allocate it and assign them. On one hand, it may feel cumbersome. On the other hand, actually, it is interesting in game terms because that procedure, the logistics to get the resources inside the house, is always threatened by German attacks. So yes, now my goods are on the flotilla and I'm looking for cards, looking for actions because I want them to get to the other side of the river as soon as possible before they get bombed from the sky. Then maybe before I do that, I reinforce my air defenses, increasing my chances that my goods are not sunk as they are across the river. Or maybe I'm now sacrificing some actions that I really want to take to emphasize organize the flotilla and speed up the delivery. Or I decide to take a little more of a risk in that sense because there really is an opportunity now to attack somebody, or because there are different things that I really want to do at the same time. The Germans are almost entering the house, so maybe I want to use an action to use a forward server to rain fire and destruction over them, etc., etc., etc. So yes, there are, I would say, decision trees or almost sequences of events that are a little bit laborious to learn. And well, also another thing is that even if you're a seasoned war gamer, this game is so unique in its procedures that there really isn't much that you can port from other games. It's not like, well, I know how zones of control work, so I already know how they work in this game. You have to learn it from scratch. And so there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve there. But again, once you have this idea clear in your mind, it's actually really fun. It is really exciting even to work through the complexity and a lot of the challenges that you have there, to deal with the constant scarcity, of elements. I want to do this, and there are 3 more things or 5 more things that I like to do, and I don't have the resources. I switch to those, and now I have to deal with the fact that another area of the city is being leveled, is being ground to dust, or then I reinforce the operational level, and now I realize that my soldiers don't have food, don't have resources to suppress the enemies, or the waves are coming, etc., etc., etc. So your priorities will shift throughout the game, and really this is how you master the game. In a sense, it almost feels like, I wouldn't say a Euro game, but definitely a game with a Euro element. Although, heck, when those German tanks, they blow up because of a trap that you prepare with a sapper token, or when they keep pounding your wall and you just get lucky and they don't get to reduce the strength of the building, or again, when they are coming with a mighty attack from the sky and your air defenses reduce or completely annul the strength of the attack. There is a quintessentially war-gamey feel to it. Or again, when you move a machine gun team to a certain place within the house and you're able to take down an enemy. It feels like a war game with that Eurogamey element that takes care of, well, I guess the kind of thing that Eurogames are good for, which is, again, to handle representation of supplies, of resources, of transports, of budgeting, etc., etc., etc. So in general, I really enjoyed Pavlov's House. It is for the committed wargamer, most probably. For someone who's not familiar with wargaming, it may take a little longer to get there. Although actually, almost on second thought, precisely because it is so unique, heck, maybe some hardcore Eurogamer paradoxically may have an advantage in learning how to play the game. But definitely it's a very strong design, one that is intensely thematic, it feels very historical, and it doesn't just show you the theme, the historical theme, but really gets a sense of the processes, of the procedures, of the challenges, of how we may think of those heroes inside the house almost like in Hollywood style, but in truth they are part of a bigger picture, and this again that gives you a sense of that bigger picture, and I like that very much. In general, Pavlov's House, a very strong solitaire war game, and one that I recommend to anyone who is interested in World War II, in the Stalingrad campaign, or just in general in good war gaming.